Hi, my name is Julie Gottlieb. I'm a professor of modern history in the Department of History at the University of Sheffield. I research the history of the late 1930s, especially the Munich crisis. But the difference between my work and much existing scholarship is that I'm looking at different angles, not just the high politics and diplomatic angles. I'm looking at a people's history of the Munich crisis. It's very exciting that this film is now available on Netflix. Of course, it's based on Robert Harris's novel, Munich, and the film is called Munich, the Edge of War. But let's also remember this is a work of historical fiction. It's not a dramatization of history. It makes no claims to be entirely accurate. It's a great opportunity to think about the Munich crisis more deeply and to remind viewers of the wider context and some particular aspects of the period that aren't necessarily covered in this film. And I'm going to focus on 5 aspects here. One of the most poignant images of this crisis, of this mise en scène, is Chamberlain returning to London. First, he arrives at Heston Airport, then he drives through London amongst elated and joyous crowds. And the first stop he makes is at Buckingham Palace. There he meets his wife and, of course, the King and the Queen. They appear together, the 4 of them, on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. That was actually unprecedented. This was the Crown giving their royal endorsement to the Munich Agreement and to the Prime Minister. This was considered quite controversial, especially as the Crown was meant to be impartial. But why is Chamberlain so open to these very kind of polarized views? Well, one of the reasons is that he never had a chance to kind of set the record straight in his own words. He, unlike so many other politicians of the era, such as Churchill, he didn't keep a diary. He never wrote his memoirs. He died in 1940 before he really had a chance to sit back and reflect. And the only thing we have that gives us real insight into his psychology, his personality, and his character, and not always very flatteringly, are the diary letters that he sent on a weekly basis to his 2 unmarried sisters. So it's really interesting to think not only about the high politics of appeasement, and we can do that by looking at actually some of the leading figures and their representation. And the one thing to think about Chamberlain is that he was always represented with, or even as, his umbrella. Indeed, the umbrella was everywhere. There was a big boom in sales of umbrellas just after the Munich crisis. There were Chamberlain dolls holding the umbrella. There were tankards of Chamberlain with the handle of the mug in the shape of the umbrella. There were plates, there were Christmas cards, there were sweets and chocolates in the shape of the umbrella, all representing Chamberlain. These were the more positive appraisals. But in cartoons, Chamberlain was represented as the umbrella in a much more derogatory way. Now, let's not forget the biggest grossing film that year, and still in the cinemas in September 1938, was Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Very quickly, these 2 stories, the historical one that was unfolding in front of everyone's eyes, and the cartoon one, became interspliced. So Chamberlain was represented by the famous anti-appeasement cartoonist David Lowe as Snow Use and the Seven Dwarfs, with the main members of his cabinet filling the roles of the Seven Dwarfs. My own interest is in how the crisis was internalized by ordinary people. And one of the most difficult ways, but fascinating ways that we can explore this, is about the psychological impact, the psychiatric impact of crisis. Sadly, a number of people, indeed one could even say there was a slight epidemic of suicides as a response to the Munich crisis and the fear of the war to come. It's very important to remember that this was not just some faraway drama, that this impacted on people's lives, on their fears, on their hopes for the future, on everything they might plan to do. Indeed, there are a lot of parallels that we could draw between our own experience of living in pandemic times under lockdown with that fear, uncertainty, bewilderment, and what people were thinking, feeling, and emoting in those months of the Munich crisis and its fallout.